From Lewis Hamilton to Michael Schumacher, we've seen some sensational drivers in Formula One. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's some drivers who are so bad that they could do nothing right on the track. And we'll be talking about them. Starting with Nicholas Latifi. The only good thing Latifi did in his F1 career is crashing his car just at the right moment. The infamous crash that won Max Verstappen the championship in 2021.
I mean, today itself didn't go very well, obviously, with the incident with Mick, and then we had an electronic issue at the end, which kind of made us have to retire the last few laps. Started to lose the dash, the comms, and I got a lot of smoke coming through the cockpit, so I was just waiting for a fire to start, really. But yeah, I mean, in the 3 years with Formula One, obviously, I've been very grateful.
We'd make a nice weekend out of it with a lot of my cousins and uncles. We would go to the race. I don't remember the first year I went there to watch the race, but I would have, if I had to guess, it was probably since I was around 7 or 8 years old, something like that. I would have gone to the Grand Prix.
Latifi caught the racing bug, especially having witnessed some of the big moments on track in Montreal from the grandstands.
Apart from that, the Canadian was terrible. Yes, he had a huge sponsor behind his back to help his way into F1, but this wasn't completely unfair. He had a good time as a junior racer and also finished second in the 2019 Formula 2 Championship. Impressive, right? But the only thing he was famous for in Formula 1 was his lack of speed and his crashes. You could argue that Williams' pace isn't where it once was. But then there's your teammate. He's your main competition in a team like Williams Racing. And if you can't outpace your own teammate, then there's something seriously wrong with you. And Latifi never did. He was constantly being outpaced by his teammate, and it was embarrassing. A nice guy, but he was clearly not cut out for the pinnacle of motorsport. Speaking of nice guys, the next driver on my list wasn't one at all. Nikita Mazepin. Oh, the things you have to do for money. Haas wanted some cash injection badly, but there was only one way they were going to get it, by giving one of their seats to Mazepin. Why? Because he's the son of a Russian billionaire and the owner of Uralkali, the same company that sponsored Haas. They decided not to develop their cars throughout 2021. Instead, they wanted to focus on the massive rule changes for the 2022 season. But that cost them the most important thing in Formula One, their pace. Clearly, Haas was fighting in the bottom three, but still, Mazepin couldn't prove his worth against his own teammate Mick Schumacher. Just hear out the qualifying head-to-head between the two. Mick 19 and Mazepin 0. Disgusting. But not only is he a terrible driver, he's a terrible human as well. See, before his first race for Haas, a video of Mazepin groping a young woman made rounds on social media.
Hey everybody. As you know, I have lost my contract to compete in the Formula One World Championship this year. At first, the FIA, the highest governing body, has allowed me to compete as long as I'm a neutral athlete. But then the team has cancelled my contract. Because of this, I have decided to make a foundation that will be supporting athletes that have lost their chance to compete in a sport at the highest level because of a non-sporting decision. We will be providing jobs, financial support, psychological and legal aid in case the athletes wish to debate their position.
Terrible. And while Mazepin is still fresh in our memories, let's head back to the 90s with this next driver, Jean-Denis Delettres. Surprisingly and unsurprisingly, the 90s were full of paid drivers as well. Some turned out to be good, but not Delettres. Bad isn't even the right word to use for his performances. He made his F1 debut in 1994 for La Rousse in the final race of the year, the Australian Grand Prix. That race is more famously known for when Michael Schumacher crashed into Damon Hill and won the Drivers' Championship. While the two were absolutely battling it out on the track, they had one more thing to worry about: a huge green roadblock. Delettres' car. See, Delettres was lapping 9 seconds slower. At one point in the race, though, he picked up some serious speed, but not where he was supposed to pick up speed. The dude did it in the pit lane and was even fined for it. Terrible debut. His deep pockets even got him a seat the following season at the Pacific. But only after 5 races for them, the team kicked him out as soon as he ran out of money. It almost felt like they were waiting for him to run out of money. But apart from being bad like the rest of them, the next driver was also very unlucky. Taki Inoue. He may not be known for his racing skills, but he's most certainly remembered for the hilarious accidents he had in 1995. All thanks to his terrible driving, of course. The incident happened in the streets of Monaco. His car broke down in the qualifying session, and when he was just sitting there in his car waiting for help, his car was smashed by a Renault Clio and flipped upside down. Thankfully, he was wearing a helmet. So many things could have gone wrong if he wasn't wearing one. And that's not it. Once again, in the Hungarian GP, his car caught fire. He was standing on the side of the track when he was hit by a course car. And after a series of disappointments and retirements, Inoue decided not to get hit anymore by safety cars and retired at the end of the season. Unlucky guy. Speaking of disappointments, this next driver's career was full of them. Alex Yoong, stepping into F1 and a not-so-good junior career wasn't a problem for Yoong. He had the financial backing of a Malaysian government-backed organization behind him. Why would it be hard for him? Team Minardi was instantly attracted by him. Well, actually not by him, by his money. They brought him into the team, and guess who was his teammate at the time? Mr. Fernando Alonso. His debut at the Italian Grand Prix wasn't one to remember. He qualified at the back row of the grid, and that's not it. He barely made it to lap 44 of the race before spinning off. Alonso left for Renault, and Yoong got another legend as his teammate, Mark Webber. Obviously, Webber outpaced him at every single race. Only at the end of the season, Minardi said goodbye to Alex Yoong. Reportedly, the funds that he promised Minardi were never received. Whoops. All in all, his career was brief and pointless. And while we're on the topic of pointless careers, here's another one for you. Gaston Mazzacani. Guess which team he bought his way into? Minardi. He made his debut at the 2000 Italian Grand Prix. Mazzacani was about to finish in points in the USGP that year, but of course, he didn't. And thank God he didn't. Maybe he got to stay another year in F1 because of that. The reason he didn't, though, is the weirdest. When he came into the pit lane for fresher tires, he ran over his own pit crew members. How do you do that? Crazy. He was signed by Prost for the 2001 season, but only after 4 races into the season, he left after being constantly outperformed by his teammate. Thankfully, he never competed in F1 again, just like this next guy, Yuji Ide. When you got powerful friends, you don't need to worry about anything in your life. He used his friendship to land a seat on the Honda Junior team, Super Aguri. The team was run by his friend Aguri Suzuki. Ide was a rookie at the age of 31, but you can never blame your friend for dropping you just 4 races into the season. I mean, not if you're lapping 5 seconds slower than your teammate. That's just a terrible stat. Thankfully, his career didn't last long. And while everyone up until now has been terrible, here's the worst of all. Ricardo Rosset. This guy's only achievement was he teamed with Verstappen. No, not Max. His dad, Jos Verstappen. In the 1996 season, he was so bad he couldn't even finish half of the races. In the races that he completed, he was completely outpaced by his teammate Jos in all of them. For the 1997 season, he joined the MasterCard Lola project, but the project was over before it even started. The team couldn't even qualify for the season opener Australian Grand Prix, but Rosset still managed to get a seat at Tyrrell in 1998. How was he doing it? Financial backing. But no matter how much money you have, if you're not a good driver, you're just not a good driver. Like this guy failed to qualify for 5 races that season. That pretty much tells us everything we need to know about him. Well, folks, these were the worst drivers in F1 history.